Oliver Anthony. Everyone's heard, it seems like most people have heard about this guy across the planet. The country singer from down south, who just went massively viral, incredibly famous. Already been interviewed by Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson. And quite the story, right? It's one of those only in America stories almost, rising from the ashes of nowhere, singing a song on his iPhone or his Android, I think it was. And it just went viral, massively viral. If you haven't looked up the story, you can just Google it, or YouTube it. But I just wanted to share my thoughts on the man and the song and the story. Nothing revelatory. I always self-deprecate myself. Like, I don't have anything important to say. I always preface that. That's probably the British in me. We're very good at putting ourselves down. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that I feel a little bit jealous, a little bit envious, maybe more, as I used to be a musician that struggled hard to get our music out there, struggled hard to make a career of our music, and it never took off like we wanted it to. And our music was good. It's still there on Spotify. I'm proud of that music. When I listen to it, I'm like, it's good. The lyrics were good. The songs were good. Our live performance was good, but it just wasn't in God's plan or the universe's plan for us to, take off and really have, be able to make a career of music. And I do miss it a lot. There's something about performing. If you haven't performed, you won't understand it. But when you're on stage, for one, you get to create almost an alter ego. You get, the same way, Ziggy Stardust, David Bowie managed to create that other guy. It doesn't have to be as extreme as that, but you get to create someone that acts on stage different than you act in some kind of form. Like, you don't want to be a complete phony, because you can see through that, but you get to do things on stage that you would never normally do off stage. You get to let go of all of the worries of the world, and for 1 hour when you get to perform, you get to just be completely free of all of that. I do follow motor racing, and I've heard people that drive race cars, they say you have to be so in the moment when you're racing, because everything's you can only think about what you're doing, and that's part of the release of probably extreme sports. And for me, I felt that in music. I've seen pictures of myself on stage, and the smile on my face, you can just see it. And so that's one thing I do miss. But this guy, who wrote this song, Richmond, North of Richmond, and many, many other songs, I got to say that I'm not a big fan of country music. It's not my type of music, but the lyrics are very bold and clear to hear. And clearly, he was speaking a truth that he was speaking in that song, talking about what was in people's hearts, because why else would it go viral? Like, people linked into it and were like, he's singing about what I feel. He's put into words all of these things that I feel. And sadly, the world's in a very, very lost place. We're more divided than we've ever been. We're more angry than we've ever been. We're poorer. People are poorer than they've ever been, while the elite are richer and the poor are getting poorer. The world you'd be blind if you didn't admit the fact that we're in a very, very strange and precariously dangerous place. Well, that's kind of nice light right there in the world. The sun's coming up. It's morning here on the farm. And so what a strange phenomenon, right? Where someone can, Justin Bieber had that same story, right? I think he did a YouTube of himself, and someone caught it, and he, one of the biggest singers on our planet. So this is kind of one of those stories. But listening to him being interviewed by Peterson, you can hear that this guy is the real McCoy. He's a thinker. He's been through struggle, and he's very, very aware of of how the machine of the music industry and really our kind of corporate world wants to take this fame. They don't give a monkey's probably about the sound. There's like, people like you, we want to make some money on it. And he's had these multi-million-dollar record deals offered to him, and so far, from what I hear, he hasn't taken any of it, which is pretty incredible, because that would be very enticing. I don't know if I would be strong enough to be able to stand, and it does touch on a nerve. I wonder how much of my convictions, how deep do they run? You can tell that this guy really, really has a cause. He has a plan for his life, and he's very, very aware that of how the trappings of this whole phenomenon could steal that from him. And I wonder if those record deals were offered to me. I want to ask myself, I don't think I'd be that strong. I think I'd be enticed by the money, by the fame, and so it's going to be an interesting story to follow. It's the skeptic in me thinks that he won't be able to hold for much longer, as far as, but then maybe he can. Maybe he's going to be an anomaly. Maybe he's going to really, be able to, I think that there's no way that kind of fame, he's already doing shows at farmers markets with 12,000 people. I mean, that's a lot of people. It's not 75,000 like Taylor Swift gets, but that's still a lot of people. And there's for sure, his friends are going to probably feel like he's leaving the planet. That just happens, right? You can't give yourself to that many people authentically. You have to eventually, his life will never be the same. So it'll be an interesting story to watch. I hope that he has accountability around him and he's able to hold strong. I haven't looked much at it, but I think the left has been freaking out over his song and thinking it's garbage. The right embraced it, but even him says has shown frustration about how his song's been politicized. He's like, it's not a political song. It's just the people. I'm just talking from my heart, and he's frustrated about how everyone wants a piece of the meat, right? We're like the media as a whole, politics as a whole, are like vultures circling, and then they see something that's peaking, and they want as much of that meat as they can while it's still around, until there's just a carcass left, and then they leave and look for the next kill. And he's got eyes to see that, so I hope he stays strong. What else have I got to say about him? I think it's worth listening to him. It's worth listening to him as an inspiration, like the way him and his wife have a 5-year goal. I haven't set goals. I'm the worst at setting goals. I fear it, because I've got such a fear of failure. Like my wife often says, let's walk around the farm and plan our next 5 years out, or plan the next year out, and it makes my stomach tighten up, and I notice that in myself. And looking at this Oliver guy, you think, oh, he's not a planner, but he is. He's planned his, he's set a plan out for his life. I think he wants to turn his farm into some kind of rehabilitation for PTSD soldiers, and I think, and that convicted me. I was like, oh man, I should really embrace this goal setting thing. Stop being so afraid of it. It's definitely, I'm kind of a seat of your pants guy, and that has an advantage to it, where you can make a decision on the fly. But it also has a dark side to it, where you're afraid to plan, because really the root of it is a fear of failure. Because if you write it down and say, I'm going to do this, and you don't do it, then you've kind of failed, right? It's easier not to write a plan down, and then if you don't do what you think in your head you want to do, then you haven't written it down, so it wasn't really a failure. And so, yeah, it's good to listen to these people's stories. If you don't like the song, it's an interesting story to watch, and he's an interesting guy. He's very, very eloquent. He's very deep. He's kind of religious, into the Bible. If that's not your bag, well, you take what speaks to you, and you throw away what doesn't. But I think last thing is like, it's undeniable that he is tugging on the heartstrings of people. It's undeniable that there's folks, millions and millions of folks in the world that are deeply, deeply hurting, deeply unsatisfied with where things are at, deeply frustrated with the Western governments, politics, division, deeply unsatisfied with where we're going, the woke politics, and the fact that this guy has got such extreme fame overnight just goes to show that millions and millions of people are hurting and thinking the same thing. We're just all in our little bubbles trying to survive. And this guy had the balls to call it what it was, and I'm definitely challenged by that. I noticed myself being what do they call it? Self-regulating myself, censoring myself, because I'm afraid of what people might think. And this guy didn't mince his words at all. And I think that that should be an inspiration to all of us to step up, not because we want to be famous from it. I think that if we all, in our own little way, step up and speak our truth, not in a mean, aggressive way, like the arguing that happens online is grotesque. It's not wanting to listen to the other party. It's just speaking your truth in an angry way. But I think if we speak our truth in a loving way and an understanding way and a willingness to maybe change, then I think that is the change that our world needs. I think that we are, unfortunately, because we're so afraid of being canceled, being shunned by our friends, losing our jobs from our employers, being kicked off social media, where we've got to the place where, whether you want to admit it or not, we're all self-censoring a little bit. We're all filtering what we say online or say to our friends. And I do that, and I consider myself kind of a gutsy guy and one that sort of speaks my mind. But I realize that even myself, if I'm honest, I've censored my thoughts. And part of that filtering is good, because you don't want to be an asshole. You don't want to be the guy that's always causing trouble. You want to have empathy for other people. You want to be able to mix around with other people that don't believe what you believe. I get that. It needs to be tempered. There's a time and a place for everything. The belligerent, always harping personality is, no one wants that guy around. So there's a time and a place, but I also see that, like Orwell's book talks a lot about self-censorship and putting a lid on your mouth, not being able to speak your truth. It's a very, very dangerous place that we're heading in. And it's this, I think it presses on a nerve of this innate need for approval from people. And so we say what we need to say to get the most approval and the most love. And I think that's this self-censorship is coupled with this deep need for people's approval and to be virtuous. This virtue signaling, we hear this topic thrown around a lot these days, and I think it does touch on a lot of that in us. So yeah, that's a little blurb. It's my thoughts about Oliver, and it's kind of fun to talk about these things. So yeah, check him out if you haven't heard him. It's an interesting song. It'd be an interesting journey to watch. Let's not hope for his demise and failure and crash. Let's hope for the best for him. Let's really do that as a people. I can see myself, if I'm honest with myself, sometimes you successful people, you're almost secretly wanting them to fail because it makes you, not better than me. And I think that humans have that in them, and it's an ugly side of us that we want to see successful people trip up. We get kind of a guilty pleasure out of it, and it brings them back down to our level. But let's not do that. Let's commit to believing in and I think that belief that has a lot of effect. The universe listens to that, and put it out there in the universe that this guy would really be different, that he would hold fast to his beliefs and convictions, and that he would be kind of hate to say a biblical term, a voice in the wilderness, speaking his truth and continue to do so and be successful. So yeah, talk to you later.